Hello, I'm Steve Saxon. I'm a partner with McKinsey, based in the key export port in China of Shenzhen, and I lead our shipping and logistics work across Asia. And I'm joined by my colleague, Jana Remes, who is a partner with the McKinsey Global Institute based in San Francisco. What we want to talk about today is the boom in the pricing for container shipping. What used to cost maybe $2,000 to ship a standard 40-foot container from Asia to North America or Europe is now $12,000 or even higher. Whether that's good or not depends on who you are. The container shipping lines, while they're having an operational challenge, are making more money than they have ever made in their lives. However, the shippers are desperate. They're paying 6 times what they used to for container shipping. And even at these prices, they're not always able to get the capacity which they want to ship. So Jana and I are going to have a conversation about what has caused this run-up in pricing in container shipping, looking at the supply and the demand in the industry. And then we're going to get out our crystal ball and look forwards. What's likely to happen in the future? Do we expect rates to normalize? So first of all, on the demand side, we have seen container demand rise from 2019 levels. However, at an overall global level, there's only around a 5% increase in demand. That should have been relatively easy for the container lines to handle with the existing fleets. So what's caused the spike? Jana, would you comment more on demand?
The pandemic was a huge hit on demand across the globe. But what has been unusual and particularly important for the container industry is it has been very different in that as the pandemic forced people to stop getting out, to travel, to live entertainment, to restaurants. They stayed at their homes. And particularly in North America, where people in general have larger homes and more opportunities to now then invest on their homes by building home gyms, home offices, getting other kind of recreational gear that they can use for spending time at home. They really shifted their consumption patterns in a way we have not seen in any of the past downturns. Demand for services dramatically dropped, changing a decades-long trend of rising demand for services, and demand for many goods rapidly increased, something that most people selling those products didn't expect, which led to real shortage in the inventories, in many cases, sometime in halfway through last year. This was particularly hard for durables such as recreational vehicles, some cars, etc.
So while there was an overall global increase maybe of only 5%, there was a particular spike in North American imports. And looking just at the key ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which are the main import ports from Asia, we were seeing volumes up to 40% higher than they were in 2019. The ports and also the hinterland infrastructure behind them, such as the rail, the trucking, the container yards, were unable to handle such a large spike in volume and started to slow down. And it's that congestion which has really been the cause of the problem. So while there's a moderate increase in demand, there's been a significant drop in supply. And supply here we measure as the container ships which are actually sailing. McKinsey, through our Deep Blue tool, tracks every container ship in the world and on it at any particular time, whether or not it's sailing. And this chart shows you the last 2.5 years of the container ship sailing capacity. You'll see there are some natural lulls around Chinese New Year and so on. And earlier in 2020, capacity fell as well, because at that point in time, container lines were all scared about what was going to happen to demand with COVID. By the middle of 2020, it was pretty clear demand was going to be robust. All those container ships were sailing again. And so by September 2020, we were seeing pretty much all ships sailing and giving us the peak capacity. Since then, though, capacity's dropped 11%. And why? What's caused that? The first one has been the congestion that I mentioned. That has been in North American ports because of the spike in demand. It's also been because of COVID in the ports themselves. In some ports, longshoremen have caught COVID, or their colleagues have caught COVID, and people need to quarantine or isolate at home. And therefore, the capacity of the ports has declined as well. We were hit by the freak event, which many of you will remember, of a ship being stuck across the Suez Canal in April. And while that caused a short-term blip of a couple of weeks in terms of ships needing to wait, there are ongoing repercussions for several weeks afterwards to get that backlog cleared. That was resolved, but recently, just here in Shenzhen, the port of Yantian has had a COVID outbreak. Yantian is one of the largest export ports from South China, and the number of ships outside was up to 20, 30 waiting at one point in time. Now, the outbreak is now resolved in Yantian and capacity is back. However, it is taking time to work through that backlog. So the cause of the spike in pricing has not been demand increase, it's been the capacity reduction because of the congestion which has appeared in the system. What's happened because of this? Well, first of all, container lines are making a lot of money, but they're also trying to add back capacity as quickly as they can. They're ordering containers, which are also in short supply. They're trying to increase the turnaround of the container boxes, in some cases by refusing to take export cargoes from the US and from Europe, which pay considerably less. They're also chartering any other ship they can get their hands on, anything to try and keep these goods moving. Finally, we're seeing an unprecedented spree of ordering new container ships as well. However, it takes 18 months to build a container ship, so those are not coming anytime soon. What's happening to the shippers? Well, first of all, they're trying to get their hands on any particular capacity that they can, but they're also needing to deal with higher rates, and that's squeezing some of the marginal shippers.
So what's going to happen to demand ahead? We believe there is a number of reasons why the sustained demand for goods will continue in the medium term. First of all, many households have excess savings. They were able to continue work from home and receive income during pandemic, but because they weren't able to spend, the savings doubled across households in the US. This happened also in Europe, anywhere between 50 to 100% increase in savings. So most households will have sufficient money to continue to spend in goods, even after they start spending on services. In addition to that, the government response in terms of stimulus funding has been robust. In the US alone, the stimulus funding over the last pandemic period has been over a quarter of GDP, an unprecedented level that has helped sustain demand from particularly the lower income households. And we know that it's going to take a while before services demand can fully recover, particularly for international travel, given many of the remaining restrictions. So until we really do see a change in the environment and people have time to spend their savings, we are likely to see continued demand for goods.
So when is this going to end, and when a container price is going to come down to more reasonable levels? Demand side looks robust, as Jana just said. And in addition, we're going into the typical peak season for container shipping. August, September, October is when all the retailers are stocking up goods in advance of the Christmas peak. We therefore don't see prices coming down significantly until towards the end of the year. On the supply side, though, the current bottlenecks are being resolved. Yantian is working through the backlog. And as long as there's no further major COVID outbreaks in ports, we do see capacity slowly getting added back. So therefore, towards the end of the year, we could see prices start to more normalize. What are the longer term implications of this? Well, first of all, this whole boom-bust cycle in container shipping prices is good for nobody. The shippers don't like it, and the container shipping lines don't like it either. We are likely to see a shift in contracting towards more longer-term contracting between the container lines and the shippers, with actually enforceable contracts with volume commitments in them. We see the container lines adding lots of additional capacity. That capacity is likely to arrive in a couple of years' time, and we do think that the container shipping industry will return to an oversupplied situation. We're reasonably optimistic, though, that won't cause a price war down to the low levels container shipping has seen in the past. The industry is significantly more consolidated than it used to be, and we believe that pricing will hold up at levels which are sustainable both for the container lines and also reasonable for the shippers. And that should be a good solution for everyone. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.